Mysterious darkness. The year was 536 AD. That year in history, which is still called the darkest year of human civilization. Imagine, you're standing in the middle of your village. It's morning time. People are moving to the fields. But the light of the sun, missing. Despite the day, the whole sky is covered with mist and ash. This is what the sun looks like. Like a faint lantern, which is about to be extinguished. People look at each other, frightened, scared. And gradually this fear turns into a question. Is it the end of the world? From Europe to China, from Egypt to Arabia. Historians everywhere wrote that the sun was hidden. Dark even during the day. A shadow darker than the night. And this darkness is not for a day or week. Rather, it stretched for a whole year and a half. Procopius, a historian of the Byzantine Empire, writes, "The sun had lost its brightness. Its light is without rays. It was as if the moon was shining in the night." The records of the court of China say, "The sky was foggy, and the crops did not grow." Writers from the Middle East wrote, "There was ash in the air, and darkness reigns on earth." For the first time in history, the whole world watched the skies rise together. The people in the villages whisper, "The gods are angry." Some say, "This is the curse of the demons." Some thought it was the day of judgment. But the real question was, if the sun goes down, so how will man live?
The mystery of the volcano. For centuries, people didn't understand this. Why did the sun go out? Was it the wrath of God? Or some supernatural power in the sky? But modern science has uncovered the layers of this mystery. Scientists took samples in the deep ice of Greenland and Antarctica. And there they found particles of sulfur and volcanic ash. Which was exactly the same time, the year 536 AD. It was clear. The mist that covers the sky. It was raised from the earth. And the source of it was a fierce volcanic eruption. Scientists believe that this eruption probably occurred in a volcano in Iceland or the northern hemisphere. When it exploded, millions of tons of ash and sulfur went into the sky. So high that they got stuck on top of the clouds. From there they covered the entire sun. Now think about it. The sunlight did not reach the ground. The day looked like night. The temperature dropped suddenly. And the silence of death fell upon the earth. But the story doesn't end there. Historians point out that it's not just 536. After this, more volcanoes erupted in 540 and 547 AD. Meaning this disaster kept coming like a wave. Year after year. It pushed the world into deeper darkness. An ancient writer writes, "It was cold even in the summer. The earth was as cold as ice. The crops froze. And hunger swallowed up humans." Single quote. Imagine, when the sun goes down, let the earth get cold. So where will humans go? How will he live? Famine and hunger. That darkness of the year 536 made the biggest impact on the crops of the earth. The sunlight had diminished. Summer. It felt like winter. The rain worsened. And the fields became barren. Crops stopped growing. Grain stores ran out. And the world saw the worst famine in history. The ancient texts of Ireland say, "I didn't make bread for 3 years." Single quote. China's records say that rice crops were completely destroyed. In India too, the vagaries of weather ruined the farmers. Grain prices skyrocketed in the Middle East. People in Europe, they started dying of hunger. Imagine, your child is sitting in front of you, starving. You have nothing to give. No bread, no water, no hope. What would people do in such a situation? Many people started eating weeds and grasses in the forests. Some started hunting animals. And history is recorded that in some places people even descended to cannibalism. People were hungry, sick and weak. The city began to empty. The villages were deserted. Hunger has not turned humans into humans. Rather made living zombies. And this hunger, this famine, it didn't just last a year or two. This went on for almost an entire decade. It was as if the earth was saying to men, "Your time is running out." Single quote. Skull and crossbones plague wreaks havoc. Think. You are already fighting hunger. Your village is empty. Crops ruined. And the sunlight is still captured in the mist. But suddenly, another enemy appears. Such an enemy, which you can't even see. The year was 541 AD. A ship sailed out of an Egyptian port. There were rats on it. And those rats were on fleas. The angel of death was hidden inside these little fleas. Bubonic plague. The disease reached Constantinople. And as soon as you see, spread throughout the Byzantine Empire. People get high fever. The knots would swell. Bleeding would have started. And in a few days, death. The historian Procopius writes, the corpses grew so much that there was no one left to bury them. People in their homes, in the streets, on the streets. They were falling into heaps. Single quote. In some places, death was so fast that people locked their sick relatives alive in their homes. In some cities, the air became poisonous due to the stench of corpses. It is estimated that this epidemic killed half of the world's population. That is, if 10 people stand together at that time, 5 don't survive. Darkness, hunger and now pestilence. The fate of humanity was drowned in the dark shadow of death. The crisis began in 536. In 541 it became even more terrible. History has seen civilizations bowed down, empires broke up, and for the first time, man understood. That's how small he is in front of nature. Quote. Classical building impact on civilizations. Darkness, famine and pestilence. Together, these three shook the foundations of human civilization. The question is, where did it impact? Byzantine Empire, Eastern Roman Empire. In the year 541 Justinian plague broke out. Constantinople, that is, today's Istanbul, was plunged into death. The soldiers of the empire were dying. Farmers were dying. Merchants were dying. Historians say that if this plague had not spread, so perhaps Emperor Justinian would have conquered the whole of Europe. But death swallowed up his armies. And the Roman Empire. Slowly it began to break down. Quote. Dragon China. Dynastic records in China show that in the 530s and 540s there was severe cold and famine. Rivers froze, crops were ruined. Millions of people died of starvation. And political instability gave rise to rebellions and wars. That is, the disaster of 536 shook the foundations of power there as well. Quote. Rice plant India. In India too, the vagaries of weather have been recorded in that period. Crop failure led to famine in the states. Many dynasties declined. Old inscriptions show that in temples there is a place for grain. Hungry people sought refuge. Quote. Globe Europe and other places. The devastation that began in Europe in 536 was so deep. Historians consider this to be the beginning of the Dark Ages. The development of arts, sciences, and education came to a halt. People were so busy fighting for survival that civilization took a backseat. Trade in the Middle East collapsed. The tribes living in the deserts of Arabia were struggling with hunger and thirst. In Africa, famine and disease have devastated many areas. Historians believe that if the crisis of 536 had not come, maybe today's world would be different. Perhaps the Roman Empire would have lasted longer. Europe might not have gone into the Dark Ages. Perhaps the civilizations of Asia and Africa would have been stronger. But fate gave man a lesson. No matter how great the civilizations are, a stroke of nature, everything can change. Quote. Lessons and legacy. The year 536 AD.
The year that historians call the worst years to live. The darkness of the sun, cold wave on earth, the hunger for famine, and the death of the epidemic. Together, they brought humanity to its knees. But the question is, what has this year taught us? Human fragility. 536 proved that no matter how powerful a human being is, no matter how great the civilizations are, everyone is weak in front of nature. A volcano, a pandemic, and the whole world can change. Quote, the test of civilization. This year has also shown that people do not break down in difficulties, rather struggles. People continued to live in the midst of hunger and death. Civilizations fell, but new civilizations rose. Humanity has not stopped moving forward. Quote, lessons for today. Today, when we are battling climate change, global warming and pandemics. So the darkness of 536 reminds us, we have to respect nature. We have to stand together to save our civilization. Because if the sun dimmed again, humanity can plunge into the same darkness again. Quote, the history books say, if you can go back in time, and you are asked what year you would never want to live, the answer will be only one. Sal tree, a timber tree. 536 AD. The darkest year in human history. Quote,